Last Thursday, I hosted my first ever exclusive mastermind event at my own home right here, featuring 20 leading agency owners across the UK. And in this video, I'm going to share my 6 key learnings from the event, as well as just talk a little bit about the overall experience. Definitely stick around and listen to the last one because this was one of the most insightful learnings from the day that I think will massively alter how you think about your agency and the long term outcomes of being involved in the business. So, first of all, apologies for the reverberation and the echo. I've colonized my son's room at the moment, doing a bit of refurb. So, if it is a bit echoey, that's why. But let's get straight into the actual learnings of the event. So, as I said, I opened up my home for the first time. This was something that when I came to view my house, I always wanted to do. I love the setup. It's very close to nature, but obviously I'm not completely happy and satisfied with my home. I mean, who is? Everybody's in the same position. But I just wanted and I had this vision to bring incredible people together from the moment I bought this home and create amazing memories and growth opportunities, not just for myself, but for other people as well. I love being a host. I love bringing people together. I love it when people have incredible experiences around me. And I think based on all the feedback of the day, we definitely achieved this and more. And there's been so many learnings about events. This was the first ever event I've done. So there was a lot of things I could have done better, but I also think we did a lot of things right. And the most important thing about events, based on the feedback that I've had and just my own experience, is just getting great people in the room to have conversations. And there was an abundance of great conversations and great people in the room. So that was the number one box checked for the day. Okay. So, what are the big learnings from the actual event? Here's my takeaways. There was so many incredible insights shared by everyone on the panels and such a depth of experience of people who've really walked the walk in the room. But I'm going to start with the hardest part and identity shift for any agency owner. And that is if you are sub 1 million in revenue, it's getting out of client fulfillment. This is the major bottleneck and reframing mentally that everyone has to go through. And I've been there myself. I'm very fortunate now that I haven't been involved in any client work really for, I mean, at least 2.5 years. I do dabble from time to time and get back into it, but I'm not needed. I'm sort of being a nuisance interfering with stuff just to keep my finger on the pulse. And that is the major bottleneck facing everyone. Now, from my own experience, I've got a co founder, and Vian's obviously came on as a partner in the company as well. And that has been a massive help in alleviating that pressure and that need to constantly feel as though you need to be pulled back in. Clients need you. Most of the time, this is just a mental limitation that you're putting on yourself. And I see in the same theme and feelings and emotions clouding people's judgment in the room. Hard to say actually what you can do to overcome this, but you just got to let go at some point. I know I did. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do, but it was also the best thing I ever did to grow the agency and improve my quality of life because you just can't keep growing the business and getting the objectives and the goals that you want out of it. Why most of us thought that if you're constantly going to be roped back in, it will grind you down and it will really kill your passion for your company. There's only so much stress and mental burnout you can go through before you start to just get overwhelmed and regress. So, yep, it's an identity shift. You have to have competent staff and people who can carry the book when you're not going to be involved. It's self explanatory. But if you are fearing letting go, you either don't trust your team or you don't trust the business you've built yourself. And both of them are not easy fixes, but they are fixes that you need to focus on. Otherwise, it's hard to see light at the end of the tunnel. So, that's definitely the major challenge facing most agency owners who trying to mature and grow their businesses. The second one is there was a lot of people who have this notion that just because you're a project manager or someone who's competently organized, everybody seems to want this COO, this operations manager. And again, this is tied back to the first point of wanting to get out of service delivery. But there was a lot of people, and I've been in this position as well, where you look at someone who's organized on a day to day and you think, oh, they should be a COO. Actually, head of operations is different than a project manager. Just because somebody is organized doesn't necessarily mean they will be a good operations manager or a COO. A COO is a leadership position, and it requires more than just ticking a few boxes on a spreadsheet. It involves leading lagging indicators, tracking them, putting processes in place to improve them. So just because someone is organized with client work and also they can be really good at client work doesn't mean that they will transition well into a leadership position. And I've seen again that a lot of people in the room had tried this route with somebody that they valued and it didn't work out. So they get frustrated and they get pulled back into the service delivery as well. So operations managers, COOs, they are in massive demand. Are they necessary? I don't think so. If you're like sub 1 million personally, I don't think you need a COO. Maybe other people beg to differ. Maybe you can have a head of service delivery, but I don't really think you need to at that level based on my own experience, depending on what type of service you're offering, your margins, etc. Anyway, another conversation for another day. Leads and sales, all channels work. There is no channel. Of course, there's things that don't work as well as they used to, and there was a lot of feedback on that. Bogdan from King Kong, Email Kong, sorry, was talking about how he used to have an Upwork profile and he was top 1%. Um, Freelancer on the platform now, which doesn't work for him. Same with posting in Facebook groups. I've seen and heard similar things from many people before. There was Aaron Branch was talking about, he's scaling with meta ads and he's not getting results, or people don't get results from these talking head style videos where they do the case studies. You have to be a lot more creative these days. Cold outbound, obviously that is a recurring one that's been coming up for years now. People not getting results or the diminishing returns. You just need massive volume and a huge addressable market to even make it worthwhile. And even then, it's not. So, all things that I think we're all aware of that have been on the radar for a long time, that they don't work, or at least they're not as effective as they used to be. There was no real surprises there. What was interesting was, and this is something that I continuously see come up in conversations, is this desire, this impulse to diversify away from your core channel and what you're best at. So, for example, I built Magnet Monster off the back of content marketing. There was people who'd scaled their agencies through Meta. There was other people who were just doing referrals and they were very creative with referral schemes. Other people who did events. People have grew their agencies in many different ways. And most of the time, they haven't capped their ability to maximize their leverage on that one channel, but they overcomplicate things. They try and diversify. They go off in a different direction because they think they have to safeguard the business, or that's going to make it easier for them or more attractive. And usually it's because they became so good at one specific type of channel or marketing that they worry that the business has this whole dependency on that one continuously running. So rather than trying to just maximize it even further, they go off and dilute their focus and they lose momentum. That's been my experience as well. Not to say you shouldn't diversify. At some point, you definitely should. But I think coming to that 1 million annual revenue number again, most of the time you can easily get to 1 million in annual revenue just from being really good at one channel. You don't even have to be an amazing guy. You just need to be very competent at one channel. So take that for what it's worth. On a subject of AI, and this is tied into the next point really. There used to be a bit of a law in running an agency, any company, and what's your head count. And we've been in and through this process at Magnet Monster, where at the back end of last year we had 30 plus staff. Now we're down to like 9 to 10, 9 really. And people have been through this trap over and over again of trying to scale their agency through just throwing labor at every single problem and challenge, and then pulling back and leaning more into technology this year to do a lot of the jobs. I think the demand for the generalist Swiss Army knife type of individual is becoming more and more in demand, whereas before they were seen as sort of someone who didn't fit into this rigid system and this specific role that you need to execute within the agency, for example, like QA or like copy. Now I'm seeing, for at least the likes of us, like a strategist, should be able to dabble in using AI, copy. They should be competent and self-project manage the work to some extent. They can do QA. And there's less roles and less fragmentation down the production line. And I've seen again, a couple of people were talking about had dev-based services, and now rather than hiring more developers, they're just getting the existing developers on the team to be much more efficient and increase output, and then just doing a bit of QA at the end of the process because they're leaning into AI tools like Lovable, for example. So that was a common theme. Clients expect more price points. Yes, a lot of commoditized work to some extent, but I think agencies are making up for it by increasing the margins, driving more output, and leaning into these tools in order to safeguard the business. On the point of culture and things like this, being people who had been around the block and they've invested in the free meals, the gym membership, the Friday night pizzas and all this fluffy bullshit. And the consensus is that people just want to feel good about their work and they want to be financially compensated for it. And again, this is something I reflect on my own experience. All these incentives, course access and things like this. Yeah, they're nice to haves, but at the end of the day, people want to feel good about the work. They want to feel valued and they want to be paid. If you can't offer those two things, then all the other stuff, don't even waste time investing in it. In fact, you don't need that other stuff anyway. So, yep, AI, just to condense the points down and summarize, it's making agencies have to be more efficient, drive more output at a more competitive price, but they're making up for it through leaning into processes, operational efficiency, and getting more margin on the services that way with leaner teams. Leaner teams was a key theme. Most people are not trying to proactively hire more and more people. They want to drive more output from the existing infrastructure and team that they have, and then make sure the upsides for the team who are working for them are financially compensated. So yeah, I can only say from my own experience, that's what we're trying to do as well. Final point, all businesses are hard. There is something about the agency owner constantly chasing an exit after they've been in the game for around 5 years. And I understand that this is a tough business. It's definitely something that can grind you down once you've been around the block with client services. But all businesses are hard. You speak to people who work in retail, in hospitality, finance, any type of business is hard. If you want the big upsides and you want big money, then you're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to go through shit. You're going to have problems with service delivery and growing pains, and it's all going to wear you down irrespective of the industry you're in. There is something about agency owners that just make them obsessed with fantasizing about this massive exit. But if you look at the way agencies are valued, I think, Dominic McGregor had a good point of why not just optimize to make these businesses great cash flowing um, enterprises that help you achieve your life objectives. I mean, that was the decision we decided at Market Monster. I'm not saying, we would never reject an exit or go for it at some point, but if the business does good net margins and there's healthy amount of profit left over, funnel that into other ventures and use it to subsidize your lifestyle. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, I think most people would, chop a limb off to get to where many of us are. Location independence, most people working remote, work on your own terms. Okay, the hours can be hard and grueling, but this is a fantastic business with really good margins if you're operating in the right industry with the right team structure and incentives. And I think there's a lot of benefits that we overlook or understate because of how hard the client work can be and how bogged down you can get with that. So yeah, get yourself out of the client work, find a way to make that happen, get more focused on biz dev, sales. Not saying all the problems will disappear, but you'll probably feel a lot better about the business. It did for me anyway. So they're my takeaways. There is many, many more. It was an amazing event. Can't wait to do another one. Need to get the house a bit furnished more downstairs, but not long been in this place. And yeah, I am really, really excited. Thank you everyone who came to the event. It was amazing. And the next one will be soon. So keep an eye out. Peace.